Yep. All right.
Oh, it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. I've never had a number of different tacos though, so I can't make it a base on that one, but it's definitely worth it.
I need to follow. So they tell me. All right, I'm good to go.
Are we all good?
Yep.
Okay. Asada Shakur writes, the schools we go to are reflections of the society that created them. Nobody's going to teach you your true history if they know that the knowledge will help set you free. As long as we expect America's schools to educate us, we'll remain ignorant. Black parents were pushing for control of the schools in their communities. A whole bunch of us from Manhattan Community College loaded on the subway and took the train out to a demonstration called by the Ocean Hill-Brownsville parents. It was just the kind of demonstration I like, an energetic sea of black faces. We were all high in the atmosphere. It seemed like a kinetic dance was boogieing in the air. There aren't too many experiences that give you that good, satisfied feeling when you were fighting for your freedom. First, we would take control of the schools. Then we would take control of the hospitals. Then we would take control of the colleges, the housing, etc. Y'all just wishing and hoping, somebody said. So fighting for community control is just the first step. It can only go but so far. What you need is a revolution. We were alive and we were excited and we believed that we were going to be free someday. For us, it wasn't a matter of whether or not, it was a question of how. We always started talking about reform and ended up talking about revolution. Revolution was a big question mark. I believed, with all my heart, that it was possible. But the question was how. It's funny that white liberals were happy about the silence Gamilo and Richard Spencer began at being an active defending minority rights while ignoring problematic censorship that happened at Keene University. That's in McDonald. 15 in New Jersey College has rescinded its invitation of rapper Common to be the keynote speaker at its commencements after police there protested his selection because of his 2000 song, The Song for Asada. State University that subsidized state taxpayer funds is also once again being questioned on their decision making at the highest level. He called Asada comments of invitation slap in the face to believe here. Shakur has been living in Cuba under political silence since 1984. Shakur was a Black Panther and a member of the Black Liberation Army. She's on the FBI's most wanted terrorist list. Comment, rapped her emphasis was filled with beatings, court dates, they fabricate cases, hoping one would say Common is not alone viewing the case against Shakur with skepticism. Universities are obsessed with erasing anything that has to do with Assad and do by any means necessary, primarily by silencing supporting students and faculty. That's Merlin 13, a nearly 25-year-old campus community center at the City College in New York has roughly a closing, leading to a large furious protest by students and community groups. Garamo and Morales, the Assad Shakur community and student center was abruptly converted to coercion into this closure. Something dishonest and indicative of a major lack of respect for the ability of students organized with the campus once locked and with students unable to relate to relieve the CCNY issued its own press release saying that the room had been reallocated to provide space for students involved in experimental learning. The school's administration has tried to plead to close their change the impunities. Chancellor first ordered the signs to be taken down in 2006 after articles said that the school was honoring terrorists. The CC and Y alumni activist David Shakur was arrested for sitting in front of the doors of the center, refused to move. He was later released that day. He says that he was charged with resisting arrest, criminal trespassing, and disorderly conduct. The closure represented attacking the march. She urged them to decolonize their imagination from an imperialist worldview that's stealing their lifeblood. And the center was the hub of activism, social life for students of color, women, and our queer folk. That's Kamener 13. The center has taken on significance beyond square footage, and it was a place for lesbian, gay activists, women's rights group, community organization, and others to make common calls to ousted critics. It was a symbol of campus politics gone berserk. Security officers entered the room this past weekend, boxed up and removed the constant just be on the safe side, locked down the entire building, including the library. Before me, afterwards let their dissatisfaction be known. They organized protests, rallies, distributed flyers, posted videos to demand that City College be shut down. That community administration is really scared of a lot of the organized community building coming out of the building. We provide so many services for the community. Know your rights training, farm share that provides healthy food. We run a soup kitchen. We provide babysitting services for people in the community, and the lived experiences of Black women are ignored, and education becomes cultural amnesia. Only when we embrace these narratives allow for students, allows for Black students to indulge in them and shove them in the face of the institution that will be able to deconstruct systems of white supremacy. Thus, the role of the balance of both for the debate of reforming and methodology. That's her name. That's Butler. 17. He saw and murdered a Black woman outside the classroom. Enters the classroom. The educators and students get social media, listen to news reports, lose loved ones, our fall victims, they change violence. Hashtag your names switch to the real light where your pedagogy is in curriculum. English language classrooms are not spaces where students have learned to say your name as tested by people, women and women of color, rarely taught in absence of Black women's autobiography and members from classrooms as indicative of a larger form of historical nature. Saying her name is serious reminder of what Black women have been doing to link claims to humanity until the protect our lives and dictate the movement continues to use Black women's lived experiences and depths of fuel political theory and social change and wake extinction violence. Sarah names also call for what all women should be doing when it becomes a vehicle through which educators can begin to engage politics in the work of seeing Black women's story not only as catalysts for political change, but also sites where political change has taken place. Thus, public college universities in the United States ought not restrict any constitutionally protected speech. The one you see is keys to defending the pluralism between Black and woman color. Authors articulating bonds and mapped into our bodies. Our analysis through the Black and decolonial feminists gives us nuances that prove why a multiplicity of these voices are key. That's Butler 17. Reflect the opening exercise from Shakur's biography. I'm left with the word try. I charge by prioritizing who receives treatment to increase survival and triage has not included black and brown, cis, and transgender female bodies as educators' responsibility to work with surviving human members, activists, advocates, communities, members, and policymakers. The Institute tries to include the lifestyle of black and brown women, engaged appointments, women of scholars, and plural theoretical spaces that can explore the points of diversion among women of color scholars to clarify the conceptual intervention made when in women of color theorizing and relationship among the different patterns of repression. Each intervention exposed to the women of color have a transformed the institutional space where race, class, intersexuality overlaps to develop theories of survival, agency, resistance, and social transformation. When students use black and decolonial feminist lessons in the reading of black women's historical and contemporary autobiographies, they make it sense see how black women A become marginalized body, B develop strategies that challenge their own marginalization, C use strategies to reclaim their own humanity, bodies, and lives, and free speech in the United States, but that students be allowed to pick a side as to hear you institutional rules put in place to bar that freedom will only allow for university to target black oppression while heralding white supremacy. Private schools like Mercat with little free speech and expression proves that's Paras 16, the person who claimed allowed to make outside and actually seen the mural that he been banned from the market at campus after writing in the October 2014 blog post that Mercat administration actually characterized as inaccurate in response to the student accused the team of shutting down the conversation because the student held conservative believes McAdams to write a blog post that said that Bird was using a tactic to pull among liberals in which opinions they disagree with or deemed offensive needs to be shut by Adams and blog post for defending free speech and ideas in real university administration understand that faculty say controversial things will criticize them and each other and that he will complain about using McAdams logic. You think that he would not object to the Shakur movement, but he did. He had the loudest voice in the Shakur administration. Listen to it. It's like singing hypocritical to win the Shakur as being a no-go zone when it comes to African Americans picking their own heroes for monthly America's campuses are overwhelmingly littered with the names of white supremacy. You can't stand on so and say you're repulsed by Shakur and you justify the name Ben Tolman being honored at 2 South Carolina universities, and you can pull the trigger on the affirmative in 3 different ways. The first way is the fact that you vote on the post-field implications of the one you see we allow for something to be talked about, and also black people not being criminalized for speaking their minds on other issues they will and want to actually speak about. Second way is that via the pieces of Butler evidence, the pedagogy is really important because it shapes our understanding of how we view lives. The one you see posts of pedagogy central experience of black women along hashtag stereotypes to come in the framing for articulating black pragmatic survival strategy inflicting on black women. And 3 is by literally incorporating Sada's voice around me for formally inserting her into academic setting in a more positive concept which allows extended black revolution politics and actual debate rounds. Process.
Anybody not ready? What is the center as per your 10 and 15 evidence?
What's the center?
Yeah.
It's like this hub that was on Keene University.
Okay, so can you explain a little bit more about it?
So the center basically was an area in which black or brown people and other groups themselves were able to have conversations amongst one another. And it was a center called.
Right now?
No, the center is being closed down. Well, it's in the process of being closed down.
Okay, so what will stop it from being closed down in the world of plan?
So we say that you ought not restrict their students' freedom of expression. Being able to
So
have
what stops,
free space.
so if they're able to have free expression,
free
what
expression.
specifically gives them that geographic location?
Well, we're not like trying to say that we should give back everyone their geographic location, but rather the fact that if students want to express themselves within particular areas, they shouldn't be shut down just because Assad is there.
Okay,
Literally,
what
the
names
reason
do we
that
say?
all my evidence gives an indicator as to how the campus center itself was shut down because Assad's name was attached, because people found a liberatory protection
What
within
names
Assad.
do we say?
What names do we say?
Yeah.
I don't think that you're understanding the hashtag say her name. So
Well,
what this
that's why I'm
evidence
asking
simply
the
talks
question.
about is how you have to actually incorporate black women into your rhetoric or within your politics itself.
Right.
It's
What
not
does it mean-
necessarily
okay,
that you
that's
have
a
to
better
say,
question.
hey, just because you
I
said
know the
Assad,
question.
that's a good idea.
What does it mean to be a black woman?
To be a black woman, someone who identifies as a woman and has historically and marginally been framed as black.
Okay. So
Or frame themselves as black.
your piece of Butler 17 evidence indicates that there is a dialogue of sorts between black women of color and scholars, and then you enable a multiplicity.
No, it's not a dialogue between black women and scholars. It's the fact that there are already black scholars out there that people don't want to consider black scholars.
Okay,
or
so
black
what does
women
this
scholars.
evidence say?
So the Butler evidence, the first piece.
The second
So
piece.
the second piece of Butler evidence talks about how we should enter moments of like triage, where we have a pluralogue. What a pluralogue means is that we offer a multiplicity of different voices. So black women should be able to have a conversation between the different intersections that exist within their own like
Okay, where is
oppression,
the
class,
intersectionality in the app?
Where's the intersectionality?
Yeah, we got
no,
one of
that's
Asada.
not
Where
what the
are
one
the
you
trans
see
women
is.
of color?
I'm not intersectional politics or intersectionality as framed by whatever you're going to try to do. I'm saying I'm a pluralogue. Conversation and intersectionality as framed by theories
Great. So
are two
where is the
different things.
plurality in the app?
So the pluralogue specifically talks about how, one, we are a methodology that other black and brown women can take on.
Right, so I have a question about the
black
methodology
women
framing
wanna
you're
take
going to
it
go
on.
for.
Sure.
So your bottom of the app, you say you should vote affirmative because you've inserted Asada's dialogue into the space. This seems to indicate a performative question. So performatively, where is the plurality of the affirmative?
Performative. Okay, so we specifically put Asada's name at the top, or Asada's narrative or
I
autobiography.
know you have
at the top of the
Asada.
one
Where's
you
the
see.
plurality?
The plurality exists because we offer a method that other people can have. Obviously, I cannot speak for every single body, but rather we understand the ways in which different intersections can exist within methodology. The methodology becomes a strategy that other women can adopt, or other black women can adopt.
Okay. That's enough.
Sure, you can grab.
Yeah, just 1 second. My document.
Okay.
Okay. Starting prep.
4 left. It's 1 off. Take a case. I'll send it out.
I heard 4 off. I was shocked.
I really hope not.
Like you would.
It's uploading, so just 1 second. I think the only time I'd ever be 4 off is I'm reading something coherent poetry.
Yeah, dude, each link is a different flow.
Did any of you hit start round?
I didn't.
It's loading, and I'm just apologize. I know you're still working Google on your camera. I want to put on a flash real quick just in case this decides it's just not going to work at all. That would be is your internet working?
Yeah.
Okay. It's on a flash.
You can just flash it to her and she can email it
Yeah,
out.
that's what I was thinking. That's what I was thinking. It's called Speech 1C 512 p.m. If you start it by it's not working. Imagine flashing everyone like see the final. It's like 20 minutes later.
That'd be a hot ass mess.
It's 1 and 2, 5, 1, 3 p.m.
What are these?
Chocolate.
You should start with the call for embodied
It
speech.
started off as a pound
I will.
and
Hold on.
then
I have to send it out.
Oh yeah, no problem.
Are we just going straight down on case?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I sent it out. Just tell me if everyone got it.
Just let me know when y'all are good. Alright. Anybody not ready? The call for embodied speech is a moralistic demand to impose form upon abstract expression. Constructing language is the inevitability which must be appropriated and owned. This manifests in liberal individuals in which foreclose the potential of a communal sharing of unapple thoughts and intensities, which turns their activism arguments. Basumio 2. This is praising assemblage of enunciation or language words of interpersonal express the agency of process expressed in its neither is bringing the individual body, not even the particular institution, because it influx expressions abroad in the world of potential for what may become non-local scattered over what matter, like defining vocabulary contain that potential. These subjects is embodying the objects of my own, all the conduits which movement of expression streams and expression adopts them for its own ongoing self-redefinition. The moral imperative of the issue speak responsibly from personal experience and expressions abroad is not auditable. It may be domesticatable, only secondarily language goes from a second part to a third part, neither of whose expressions always in the move. No ethically evading responsibility, even as expression settles already extending to an unknown destination. The expression is not dependent upon general moral rules and responsibility to ethics as opposed to morality. Question how one contributes to the expression of the world. An ethical endeavor to highlight one several change for ethics emergence, and there's no longer such a thing as history. The Anthropocene has created a world that is post-archival in which narratives will have no historian to tell them. Their attempts to add another story to the bookshelf is a hopeless desire for reference that manifests as a mere spectacle. Klein 13. Humans created the capacity to destroy civilizations. It will be terminated even if there are survivors because its organizational systems will be lost. Ecological, nuclear, or pandemic catastrophes means the end of social memory. There will be no one left to record the absence of the historian. The destruction cannot be reliably described as no reliable reference. If it arrived, it would not be represented. The Anthropocene belongs to fiction. Representations are not reliable, either true or false. The greatest common scientists will never be able to say, I told you so. The sublime experience Kant invokes. The walker who turns around a corner confronts an immense abyss. When the walker sees that he is saved, he can enjoy the spectacle of a seemingly infinite nothingness. Nothing protects better from death than having died. If engagement in the politics of climate change doesn't feel funny, you're taking yourself too seriously. Wants to adopt a tone that is known as telling a fiction, but doing it with power and persuasiveness. The role of the ballot is to vote for the best methodology to cultivate subjectivity. Vote negative to engage in eco-psychoanalysis. Ecological crisis requires an all-encompassing questioning of our unconscious assumptions, processes, and theories. This adoptive view of the subject is embedded within complex and interconnected ecological webbings, deconstructing individuals in favor of a process of fluid and experimental becoming. Dodds 11. In our current ecological crisis, we need a re-examination of the basic coordinates of our lives and theories. Unwilling to adapt, entire species civilizations have found themselves in dead ends. If they fail to evolve along with shifting relations, nature and social ecosystem, equal psychoanalysis understands the world is governed by non-linear dynamics prediction. And promised by the enlightenment rationality will always reign illusory. We need to engage with the creativity of the earth. We are forced to think in complex terms to wonder about other peaks in our virtual realm of possibility. The mass aggregation of thoughts arises at the errors of our habits to think thought at deep and unconscious levels. Beyond psychoanalysis is precisely to help us not overcome such errors. For investigating eco-psychoanalysis requires the need for a radical questioning of our theories, whether psychoanalytical, philosophical, scientific, or political, and the corresponding ways of living individually and collectively to make a possible reflected entry into new uncanny symbiosis, making those disciplines strange to themselves, not to destroy, but to make them more available in a wide, great opportunity life for reimagining, experiment with opportunities for reduce flows of conjectures here and there, trying out to continue the intensity of eco-psychoanalysis, should not be seen as the end state, but a process of becoming a work in progress. Measure we're not outside ecology, we are always a part of it. Case. This card is really specific. Idolizing Assata obscures everyday radicalism enacted by black women, which turns their case James 99. Celebrate African American women achieve their stature-raised revolutionaries through militancy of their racial policies. Their iconography overshadows mundane tasks of non-elite activists shaping political realities. That eclipses rank and file organizers. Female activists display agency that reshapes their stories receive in popular culture for narratives of the Assata Shakur worked in the rank and file. Icon imagery filters political history, but is recalled this image not the specificity of militancy. The past actions can personify distorted, de-radicalizing tendencies of iconography, mass significant contributions, Panther women, and they dedicate no time for positive representations of black trans women who experience the unique intersection of anti-blackness. Centering is key to understanding blackness as a live and resilient. Here are their names, Con 15. Brutalization of black trans women has been perpetuated by every group of people conceivable. The cis straight black community doesn't even show up for black trans women. They've been abandoned time and time again by radical communities, and yet they keep fighting. Lawrence Hunter, Dane Egidi, Monica Roberts, Samantha Giordano, Chea Coleman, Lasai Wade, Milan Nicole Sherry, Monica Shavuk, Bowen Forrester, Kylie Brooks, and Rosalind Forrester. Black trans women are the fulcrum of black liberation without their leadership. We will organize in colonial ways for the marginalized women and queer and trans people, and they're focused on individual survival. Artificially brackets off collective questions and is redeployed by conservative ideology to justify structural violence. Shiro 03. Any pedagogy would have to analyze individual analysis, then how it resonates with the ongoing decolonization of the public sphere. Self-interest appears to be the only factor capable of motivating people. Private utopias become the only way of understanding good life. The ideology of going it alone furthers the myth that all social problems are the result of individual choices. It reinforces conservative ideology that assessing that collective problems can only be addressed by tales of individual survival, suggesting that life is colonized by private, cut off from larger social, economic, and political issues. It reinforces rather than ruptures the racially oppressive trends in American society that disfigure the possibility of racial justice. Now on by line. Starting at the top of the video, McDonald's 15 evidence. 1, the plan doesn't solve the internal link. It won't stop colleges from making subjective decisions about who belongs on campuses. For example, even if they have the absolute access to free speech, they still have the jurisdiction to say that they don't want comment to come, which means that it doesn't solve any of their internal links. Second, that they don't stop the center from being closed. They will use bureaucratic tactics, continue to find new reasons. If it's not that they're talking about Assad, it will be that black folks are loitering there. Anything means that it was always a moving of the market and turns the entirety of their solvency. Third is that they are a fake intersectionality. They only use it as an add-on to their affirmative of women, trying black women to attempt to sidestep contestation. They have not proved a good reason, and especially Crossix was pretty damning on this, that their performativity is plural, which means that there should be a question of a link defense there. Now they say the center was a hub of social life that was answered above. They say lived experience of black women ignore one subjectivity is a prior question. It controls how oppression functions on people. You should prefer wider theoretical questions of how the individuals operate in systems of oppression rather than really specific role of the ballot claims which allow them to exclude negative offense. It's specifically good for educational mechanisms to understand the larger dynamics of violence that exist in the world now. You say that black scholars and multiplicities are key. There's no plurality in the one and C. They have no internal links to this evidence, especially when they frame offense as a question of formativity. Second is that they are the wrong form of multiplicity. Multiplicity needs to engage not in a sense of individualism, but rather a sense of communality, which is what exactly our alternative case now. They say free speech requires they be able to pick Assata. We've impact turned the idea that we should only use Assata. There's a couple more things. Okay, now I'd throw this I'd go back to the K-flow and flow this. So they're going to say that it's a contradiction for us to read the names and at the same time read our embodied moralistic links. There's 3 reasons that's false. First, it's not a contradiction. We accept the futility of our name saying. That's the difference between the act and the negative. We understand it is a contingent act, not as something that is inevitable or will create some form of larger sociological change. Second is our name saying should be read through eco-psychoanalysis as an effective rather than mobilizing component based in structural terms. Third is that our piece of link evidence says that saying names is not the problem. It's the idea of not recognizing your name saying as a fiction, which turns your arms. So here's the piece of the second piece of link evidence. Friedrich Nietzsche calls his wisdom a gay science, a term he borrowed from troubadours. Something like that is the tone one should adopt, a tone that knows it is telling a fable, a fiction, but doing it with the power and persuasiveness of a mocking light, fleeting, divinely untroubled, divinely artificial art like a pure flame licks into uncloudless skies. No, not exactly that, so 19th century, gaiety perhaps, but we don't need any more pure flames springing up in a cloudless sky.
Are you good for Crossix?
Oh, 1 second.
Yep.
Let's talk about the case first. The James evidence gives an indicator that idolizing Assad is bad. Are black people not supposed to have black female heroes?
Right, so you can have a black hero. Our argument is that you cannot center that as the basis point for your methodology.
Wait, why is that the basis point of our
Right, so your entire app, even on the wiki, is called the Assata app. All the reasons you should vote negative
a
are
lot of
inserting
warrants,
Assata's
so a
dialogue
lot of
into
the
debate.
warrants of your James evidence gives an indicator that an idolization of just one figure itself is problematic because it skirts the conversation
Right.
away from other bodies.
Yes.
Why can't black people have one idol and then still formulate strategies for
Right, so our
themselves.
argument is that focusing on one idol has a couple independent issues. The first is it disturbs the way that if you're gonna let me explain?
Okay, explain.
It disturbs the relationship that that actual human had to the earth and their and like the way that they were able to actually act. Because if they're idolized, they become a hero figure rather than a material
Let's talk about that.
so
Let's talk
subject to
about that.
violence.
Let's talk about your K for a moment. Then, what exactly does your alternative do?
Our alternative forces us to look at the effective components of our world and engages in a robust
Okay,
theoretical
explain that
analysis
to
of
a
the
common
world.
student activist. What does a common student activist do to materialize your alternative?
Right, so they don't focus on their individualism, they focus on their potential
What does that
productivity.
mean materially?
Right.
I'm asking you for a
So,
pragmatic strategy. If
yeah.
I had to explain this to my mother,
Right,
how exactly do I go
I think
about
your
explaining
app
this to her?
evidence is actually a good reason why the alternative is a good idea. You say that there was a feeling in terms of Asada's narrative about some kind of effective relationship that was in that square. That is our argument.
What does
So
your
that
alternative
effective-
do? You don't
yeah,
explain
our
what the alternative
alternative
to your life.
embraces that effective experience rather than using
What does it
speech
mean to
as the
embrace
main
an
discourse.
effective
So I think the Berkeley
experience?
protest, if you're standing in the middle of a bunch of people chanting "Die, fascists, die," and you're throwing rocks at people, there's a particular effective component there that is missed in the affirmative when you focus on the only idea of saying
So,
names,
what does that
inserting
mean?
lexicons.
So we have to feel more? What does that mean?
Yeah, it means feeling more.
Wait, so why haven't black people felt enough?
Right, so our argument is that even if people are feeling now, our praxis should be predicated on
Wait,
building
well, how do
toward-
you measure a threshold for how black people want to feel things?
Right, so our argument, let me explain, is that
Sure, you're not explaining
methodologically,
properly.
our approaches to oppression should be based around feeling rather than language. Even if it's true that
Wait,
there's
so
feelings as
why
well.
is the one you see just language, not feeling?
Right, so the advocacy of the app is that we should basically say her name, insert Asada, insert all these other people into the lexicon of
Grant,
speech.
how have you felt your 1NC advocacy?
How have I felt it?
Yeah.
I'm holding a piece of bark right now. But on top of that, there's a bunch of other things that I
Wait,
think, like,
so-
as a queer disabled individual, I've been able to feel a
Oh,
larger
okay, yeah. Let's
connection
talk
to other
about
things.
some of that analysis on case. How do you know that Asada herself doesn't identify as a queer woman?
Right. So our argument is not that Asada may not identify as a queer woman. Like
No,
obviously
you
not
say
in-
that I don't have a representation of black trans
Right.
women or
You don't
black
have a
queer
positive
bodies.
representation of black trans.
Wait, why don't I have a positive
Right,
representation?
so the con evidence also makes a delineation between the idea of representing someone who is, for example, exiled or subject to violence, and representing someone who is positive.
Yeah,
or who
where
is
in the
communal engagement.
where if you give an indicator that
Also,
Asada is not a queer
yeah,
woman?
wait, we'll make another argument, is that
No,
you have not
answer the first one.
I'm
Where do
going to
you get it?
answer it. You have
Okay,
not made a
answer.
forefronted claim that Asada is queer. That is
So
something
I'm
you
just
need
supposed
to do.
to say that.
Yes.
That doesn't make any. Okay, that's fine. I'll take prep.
That is true. I think I'm gonna change that.
How do you determine who's felt something?
Who has felt something?
Yeah.
Well, we all feel things.
Yeah, how do
It's
you
just
determine
a-
that someone's felt something in the conjunction to your alternative?
Right, so our argument is that that kind of feeling is just something you know when you see it. It's not a communicable thing. I can't really tell you when you
So
know
how
you
do
felt.
how do the educators like in the back of the round actually know that I have felt something coming off the 1EC?
What? So
So
first, I think you're not winning an internal link to the judge being an educator. I don't think there's any of that in the 1EC.
well,
The second
I'm
is-
talking about in the context of Cassie who doesn't like to be called a judge rather than an educator. So what about in terms of the adjudicators or the educators? How do
Right.
they know that I
This is
felt
obviously
something?
a question of methodological approaches. So even if you were correct that you felt something as per the 1AC, you have not advanced a methodology that highlights that feeling as the basis point for your praxis. That was all of crossings.
What does it mean to cultivate subjectivity?
So it's developing ways of being in the world, ways of being able to interact with the world, and understanding what it means to be a subject in that world.
Oh, I'm an idiot. Yep.
138. It's overview, case proper. Oh, he's not even here. Okay.
Yeah.
Is there anything new?
I suspect so, but I don't know.
Oh, wait, is Brian there?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, he went out for a smoke. He's just like right outside.
That is just unacceptable.
Think you have time to smoke for an LB round, dude?
What?
LB round's so short.
Yeah, it's like 2 minutes. I came back right on time.
The crowd said.
You know what? Perception's reality.
Rob, what's your order?
It's case with an overview, case proper, then the K.
You said case overview, case proper, and then the K?
Yeah.
Okay.
Should we flow the overview on a separate sheet of
You
paper?
can float on that flow. It doesn't matter.
I have a bunch of arguments float at the top of the app, and then a line by line that was
And you should
supposed
probably
to.
float on a separate sheet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you just let us know when you switch over to the actual app?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're starting on the K or the F?
We're
It's
starting.
like a separate overview.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna put it back down. Alright.
Okay. Are we all good? Nobody's going to teach you your true history, teach you your true heroes, if they know that the knowledge will help set you free. We believe that we were going to be free someday. It wasn't a matter of whether or not, it was a question of how. Our side evidence from 30 years ago is still relevant today. Censorship, notwithstanding the concept of her political figure also comes out. South Africans have access to utilize knowledge concerning the one he posted some question: should black people be allowed to defend and support Assad publicly without being criminalized? We're a call to hashtag Syrian society, but revolution, collegiate, and our educational space. The role of the balance call for formally and methodologically challenge how we foster knowledge within the debate space in general and communication. We must embrace but black women's stories to count for political changes. The was memorial said dedicated to change these women have forgotten. We're black and brown people already. That's the Butler evidence. This specifically takes out a lot of the analysis he's going to do on the criticism that he did on the criticism within the case. Is not literally just about saying their names, but rather not your methodology itself is uniquely key in order to actually incentivize black or brown women. How exactly do you help them at the end of the day? How exactly does your 1EC strategy be? How exactly is your 1EC strategy a form of active resistance against the ways in which they face day-to-day violence and deny Assad to engage in the politics of racial that successfully used to race? That's what people, black women like Corinne Gay and Sky, not going to be all these other bodies in order to make white America feel too uncomfortable. We have to save their names so that no matter what we have to engage in around the revolutionary politics that we win, that affirming Assad itself opens the gateway to embody hashtag say your name on college campus, academia, or on the debate space. You have to vote for the affirmative. Now, let's the field's case proper. With their James evidence, James evidence is damning analysis. That means that black and brown people should not even have superheroes. At the end of the day, this is always going to be not. And you can be problematic. Also, the one he sees not just a form of the idolization of Assad as the only figure for conversation, but rather we invite that form of discussion of plural laws. How exactly are black people liberated by using people as a side for their campus activists? We say that form of liberation itself can be deciphered for different groups of people. It's about how different groups of people would experience different things, which means when you make totalizing claims about black people, how they want to use political figures in order to cope, that's all going to be specifically problematic and ruins the safe space that the Cameron evidence simply talks about for black and brown people. But now simply into the con and Drew evidence, and Drew evidence makes no sense in the context of black and brown people. They simply talk about we're individualistic, but no, the 1EC was always about community building. How exactly do we posit change for black and brown women at the end of the day? How exactly do we help them geared towards a different forms of change? But also, you're uniquely problematic when you assume that black woman, that Assad herself is not a queer person. She literally escaped to Assad. You can't make assumptions about her sexual identity. That's always specifically problematic. But also the fact that the 1EC already did that, and now it's about how black trans women are implicated in the context of the 1EC, but how we offer a politics towards them in order to help them. At the end of the day, this also takes a lot of the case analysis because they simply talk about we don't. So for the eternal look about how the campus itself is going to be shutting down the hub at the end of the day, but we simply talk about how we're not moving towards a marketplace of neoliberal institutions, but rather how do we use these revolutionary spaces in order to incentivize revolution? The Cameron and the Merlin evidence do the damning analysis simply talks about how the site becomes a hub for revolutionary change, of revolutionary forms of politics. So when we allow for these types of things to actually gain access, we are the ones that are causing change at the end of the day, which means that case is game over issue now. On to the K. So simply as the K, there's no one coming off the K. The problem with the one it sees the fact that he does not to announce about what the threshold is for actually feeling the ND. I damn well felt my 1A. See, also coming off the 1AC, talks about constituting language is inevitable. When the conscious of 1AC, don't let him get away with the blippy 1AC, with new 1 in our articulations. He has to be able to explain how is 1AC can be explained to people like my mother at the end of the day. How do you simplify your theory in order to actually navigate? We say that the methodology of the 1AC is going to be uniquely key for black and brown bodies to have that form of subjectivity in which we're talking about. We also mean that the role of controls the internal link towards your cultivation of subjectivity. We say how exactly you frame the cultivation of black and brown women's subjectivity. You do not frame that within your methodology. Also, turn is problematic when Grant tells black women and black people that they have not felt enough. We say that you constantly want us to feel you telling us to get lynched at the end of the day. That's constantly a reproduction of our pain.
I'm gonna try to send it out. There's just some like analytical stuff going on. So things like critique, starting with an overview, I'm absolutely pulling another page.
Does that sound good, you know?
Definitely not.
Can I look on the 1AR overview page or on a new page? Either one is fine.
New page. This thing is massive.
Okay. So you're sending it out, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Overview, critique, case.
Actually, it's gonna go the case, then the overview.
Just sideways.
So are we
Sorry?
doing the 1AR overview page or just use that later?
Put the 1AR overview page on top. 1AR overview page, then the line by line of the case and the cards I read, then the overview for the critique, then the critique. Everybody, is that good? Cool.
So you're starting on
a
this
sec.
new massive form.
No, starting on the case.
You're starting on the case.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
That should be sent out. This is the same speech doc, but there should be stuff at the bottom. Oh, well, that's back here.
Wait, when you say you're starting on the case, you mean you're starting on Brianna's overview, or are you starting on the case? Okay.
Overview, then the actual line.
Then the actual one.
Alright. Anybody not ready?
I'm good.
Great. Starting off from their overview, this new 1AR rule about is super sketchy and changes the entire debate from narratives, which is what the 1AC indicates, to material condition. Be extremely skeptical. Our 1AC strategy is predicated on the 1AC, which is the reason why you should only evaluate the text of the rule about in the 1AC. Now, analysis of abstraction is good, which turns all of their arguments. First, it's key to understand the complexity of violence. How do you explain the unintelligibility of the death of Trayvon Martin or the intersections of other forms of violence without being able to understand them abstractly? The materiality claims turn the entirety of their thesis, and there's a reason why there's a disadvantage to their theorizing. Second is that still subjectivity questions come first. They do not have a robust theorizing of what it means to be a subject in the world of advanced capitalism or the Anthropocene, which means you should point me to it when you vote for her. Now, there's a couple other arguments. Now I'm on the line. Sorry. I'm bad, I know. Remember the underview to the affirmative. You should vote on the affirmative because that is our link to our James evidence. Our argument is not that they don't get superheroes, but that they should not be the basis for your praxis. The name of your argument on the wiki and everything else. Idolization is used to obscure the reality and violence that make those people superhuman. It ignores the lived experience of black folks still in the trenches. Tell me, how does Assata Shakur, as represented by the 1AC, actually represent the individuals who are out there suffering material violence now? It doesn't. She's a superhero who lives in Cuba and is able to commit terrorism in the United States abroad. That is the entirety of our link evidence. There's no answer to this. We can win the entirety of the debate on the case. They say it's not only idolization because they have pluralism. You have conceded that you don't have an internal link to pluralism, especially when the 1AC underview indicates that you should vote on the performative aspect of inserting Assata into this debate. You do not have a reason why you are a pluralistic mechanism or a reason why you have an intersectional view of subjectivity. Now, you say that I assume Assata isn't queer. One, we don't make that assumption. We just say that you should forefront at the top of your case if you really want to be plural. If she truly is queer, then say it, damn it. Our black trans women argument is completely conceded in terms of the internal warrants. Extend our Con 15 evidence. The 8 point that not centering black trans women as leaders replicates hierarchies of violence. Black trans women exist on the extreme margins, experiencing the intersections of violence in the act papers over. Black trans women are key to black liberation overall. Their unique experience of the margin attuned them to the hierarchies they have to create, turns entirety of their solvency because they create violence against the most excluded. The B point is that other than Assata, the Ask Say Her Name reform is listed women that have been brutally murdered, at least the version on the wiki. This reduces blackness to incapacity and death because other hyper-visible women like Assata Shakur, everyday's black women's experience is reduced to violence. The act would not say their names if they've not either been murdered or subjected to some traumatic form of violence. You should refer the Cons evidence listing of saying her name. These black and Afro-Latina trans women are activists alive and thriving in the face of violence. Here is a list that we've compiled that highlights the accomplishments of these individuals and will insert into the debate. Now a little bit more on the case. You conceded that the plan doesn't have an internal link to being able to stop colleges from making subjective decisions about those who do and do not belong on campuses, which means they can still exclude common and everything else. You've also conceded you don't stop the center from being closed. They'll just use new bureaucratic tactics. That's how the state works. They continually find new reasons. It just becomes loitering is the reason why black folks should be kicked out. I don't even need to win the critique when I'm winning a massive amount of case turns. Now the critique, starting on this massive overview. Extend Klein 13, there's a uniqueness claim which controls the rest of the debate. The current epoch is that of the Anthropocene, in which human management of ecology, social, cultural, material, theoretical is totalizing and walks into human exceptionalism and global annihilation. History and empirics are on our side. The creation of nuclear weapons and mutually assured destruction. Pathogens created in laboratories and the ramping up of neoliberalism, global warming feedback loops, and fascism rising. There are two impacts. The first is an external benefit to the alternative that they can't solve with a permutation. Even if we don't win links, it's a question of methodological approaches. Eco-psychoanalysis is imperative in this particular time right now. Other methods may be good, but they are not as tailored as our methodology because it presents a comprehensive process to solve wide-reaching issues. Second, there's an impact filter. Self-care impacts may matter, or community building, but ours is both a gateway and magnifier, is able to enable productive lenses which resolve future problems. Now, not some link work. There are also multiple link arguments in this piece of evidence. The first is that their understanding of society is linear constructed, i.e. I read my narrative, it creates consciousness and changes society, or the judges should vote as an educator, is dangerous. In a post-factual world, pragmatism is not enough. Climate experts are ignored, personal experiences are overwritten, and it requires a new turn based in abstraction, robust theorizing, and personal affect, something that is communicable regardless of language. Second, they are mere sophistry, presenting a feel-good mechanism of discussion that distracts from our crisis. They create a spectacle which helps to find a way to articulate, find a grammar for, and signify that which is unsignifiable. For example, the entirety of the apps focus on Asada, which is on all of our link work we've done on the case turn should be reasons why this still applies. We cannot comprehend the destruction of the world through language, discourse, and community. It can only be understood through bodily approaches that are based in something uncommunicable. There's a few implications. A point is the app doesn't do anything. It won't be mobilized because there's no one to hear your story. The second point is that it link turns your app. The only way to create subjectivity, especially for people of color under global warming, is through refusing signification. You should vote negative to engage in eco-psychoanalysis. It's a robust theorizing and actionable method that is useful in modernity. We can definitely explain it to your mom. It's that feeling when you get super pissed off or super happy and understand that there is more than just you, but larger groups of people there. Now, it is bait. She's going to say that this equals the idea of community building that she says in the app. That's not true. Our argument is predicated on moving away from speech as the basis point, which means that this argument has been in the 1NC and the 2NR. The 2AR can knock it up and sound really great and win this debate. Now I'm line by line. It's a question of methodological approaches. That was your overview. We should start from feeling, which means there definitely is a link. Second, that it can be explained to everyone. We've already answered that. Next, second, we control the uniqueness claim on your subjectivity argument. You say we tell black women they haven't felt enough. That's obviously not our argument. Our argument is that your approach methodologically is not good. It's not that you are not good. You say commodification is inevitable. That is answered by either there will be no history in the future because there will be no historians to write it. You say perm, you to us, and you to you. There's no net benefit. That's just a reason you shouldn't get a perm. Adegoke literally uses the reason why perms are bad when you read his ass. Second is that perm do both. One, links are disadvantages, and one reasons why your iconography and the idea of trying to rationally explain violence as per the 1AR overview is bad. Second is that case turns are net benefits to our method that you can't solve. They're literally conceded. At the point in which you have conceded a case turn, which is a net benefit to the alternative, because we don't focus on iconography, or we allow the saying of black women's names, there's no way you vote on the K.
I had 138. I'm starting out.
Oh, did you see me listening?
Oh, no, I have it stuck in my head right now.
Oh, wow. Oh, yeah, I was listening to Goosebumps.
You know that song everyone fucking like? DNA?
Oh, yeah.
I actually like it better than Humble.
I mean, I kind of like Humble, but, like, that's not his best.
I agree. Everyone was like...
Okay, like, I think that he's done much better, and also, like, a lot of discussion on himself, and
What do you all think of Yacht?
It's on live last weekend. It was awesome.
Jamie's definitely good.
I agree. Dude, that like drop around the 2-minute mark.
And then Jamie's
Brian,
good.
you know what you get them about?
I got it, yeah.
Yeah, I might see them this summer.
Oh, really?
There's like a summer jam concert.
I'm jealous. A bunch of my friends are going to Jambalaya, and it's like a Texas music festival.
I might go to this thing called Panorama, and it's close to our salon.
Oh, I've heard the actually Tree was telling me about that actually.
Usually it's not even see Frank Ocean.
So it's case, then the K overview, K proper. I think you should keep the K overview and the K proper by each other if you pull them on separate sheets.
Can you say that again? I'm sorry.
So it's case, then K overview, and then K proper, but I think you should just keep the flows beside one another.
Alright. I'll just go for it again.
Oh yeah, sure.
Case K,
Proper.
let's start.
Yeah,
On
keep
where?
them together.
Alright. What about like the overview papers?
Oh my gosh,
She said just keep it close.
this is for too many.
Just go back to the honest.
Oh god. I don't know what's your problem. I got 2 clothes.
Are we all good? Good? The biggest problem is that Grant Brown is the exact replication of all the shit that we've been criticizing in the